Hello everyone, today I'm making the other movie in order to continue our chapter 17 based on textbook or chapter 4 based on my course syllabus. From previous movie we stopped by this slide. Yes, this slide. Okay, so this slide is about, the last one is about recap. Okay, we can go to see recap for this point on page 454. This one. This is recap. Methods for measuring GDP by using expenditure methods or expenditure techniques. So this is components of GDP by expenditure, consumption, C, investment, I, and government expenditure, G, export minus import, that means NX. Okay, so this is the types of expenditure. Who makes our this expenditure? Household, firms, business firm, government, and foreign sector. This is example that every agent, this is we call agent of the players, economic players or economic agents, do expenditure. Okay, so you can see based on your own textbook. Okay, this point, this is a new point for this movie: nominal GDP versus real GDP. Okay, so we will understand what does it mean nominal GDP or what does it mean real GDP in later slides. Economists are interested in comparing levels of economic activity over time. That's why yes, based on the definition of GDP, we can say that GDP is total market value of final goods and final services that produced or consumed in a country in a specific period of time. Okay, so GDP is a measurement that we use in order to measure economic activities. That's why when we're talking about, or when you want to compare, or when we want to compare the economic activities in one country, in one province, in one city, or in one state, normally we go to GDP. Okay, we go to GDP. That's why GDP from one year to next year is not the same value, it's not the same amount. It could be changed. Because of changing, that's why we want to know. Okay, so if we want to know, we want to compare. Using GDP to compare economic activity at two different points in time may give misleading answers. Why is misleading answer or wrong answer? However, as the following example show that. Okay, so misleading or wrong answer we can see by this example. So based on this table, you can see there are two types of products, one pizza, the other one rice, and we have 2 years, 2010 and 2015. So every product we have two kind of item, quantity and price. So these two columns represents the quantities of pizza produced and the price of pizza, and the other two columns represents quantities of rice produced and the price of rice. Okay, you can see this is a table that shows two productions producing two products, pizza and rice, with different years, different data or different figure. Based on the table, based on the table, we can find that GDP 2010 come from market value of one product plus market value of the other product, because our table show us about two products, pizza and rice. Okay, in order to find market value for pizza, we need to get the quantities of pizza produced multiplied by the price of pizza. Again, in order to get market value for rice, we need to get the quantities of rice produced multiplied by the price of rice. So this is market value of pizza, this is market values of rice. So as we know that GDP is total market value of final goods. Okay, we don't have service here, so final goods. That's why this is market values of pizza are final goods. This is market values of rice are my final good. When we add them together, we call GDP. Okay, should be GDP by production. So GDP 2010 is equal to 210. Why? Because quantity pizza produced in 2010 multiply the price of pizza in 2010. This for rice, the quantities of rice produced in 2010 multiplied by the price of rice in 2010. That's why this is total market values of pizzas and rice in 2010. The other one, 2015, do the same methods or the same way of calculation. We got that GDP in 2015 is 735. Come from the total market values of pizza 2015 plus total market values of rice in 2015. Okay, so do the same way. I will not explain you again for 2015. Observations. Okay, so observe by looking at these two tables, these two data. The physical production of each good increases 3 times or triple. Physical production, that means the activities of producing each good increased by 3 times. Okay, we can go to see table. This is the physical production, because when we perform activities of producing, we will get output. Okay, so you can see that the quantity produced for pizza in 2010 is 10, 2015 is 30. That's why how many times the real production or the physical production or the activities of production, the activity of producing pizza increasing 3 times. Okay, 3 times. Look at this one. This is the physical production of rice or the activities of producing rice. 2010 20 and 2015 60. So from 20 to 60, how many times? 3 times. Okay, so look, by looking the physical production or the activities of producing these two goods, we can see that from 2010 to 2015, the activities of producing these two goods increasing by 3 times each. Okay, 3 times each. That's why when we see the observation, the physical production of pizza and the physical production of rice increases triple, 3 times. But if we compare the GDP 2010-2015 total market value of pizza and rice together between 2010 to 2015, we can see that 3.5 times. Okay, by taking the GDP 2015 divided by GDP 2010, you can see 3.5 times. So this is a problem. The physical production or the activities of producing increase only 3 times, but when we look at the market value increasing by 3 times. That's 3.5 times. Why? Half time different. Okay, so By looking GDP increased by 3.5 times. By looking the production increased only 3 times. But why GDP increasing more than the production? Why? Why is GDP increase more than the activity of producing, or we call physical production? This is, we might conclude that from 2010 to 2015, or between 2010 to 2015, the economic activities are increased by 3.5 times. The economic activity increased by 3.5 times. This is a wrong conclusion. This is a wrong conclusion. Why is it wrong? Because when we're talking about economic activity, or we're talking about activities of producing, activities of producing is only 3 times. We cannot say 3.5 times. But based on GDP, we can say 3.5 times, because GDP represents the total market value of final services that we produced in one period of time in one country. But why the activity producing and the GDP, that the measurements of the measurement that we use in order to measure the economic activity is different amount right now? Okay, can you see why it is wrong? Maybe some of you, after seeing this observation, you can get some idea why it is wrong. Why GDP increase more than the activities? This is activities of producing, this is GDP. Why? That's why. Because of this reason, because of this question, we need to study nominal GDP, real GDP. Okay? Because of this one, we need to study nominal GDP, and real GDP. Okay? So, now we're going to see in detail why this is a wrong conclusion. Why it is a wrong conclusion. Answers show that the prices as well as the quantities rose between 2010 to 2015. Okay, so when we compute here, this is quantity, this is price of pizza. This is quantities, this is price of rice. You can see quantities increasing, price also increasing. Quantity increasing, price also increasing. That's why when we're talking about GDP, it's increased 3.5 times. But when we're talking about the activity of producing, it's increased only 3 times. Okay, that's why this is the difference. This is the difference. So if you want to measure, or if you want to compare the economic activities or the activities of performing or activities of doing something in your country, in your state, in your province, in your city, so what we need to do? We do this way or do the other ways. Okay, if we do this way, this is not represents economic activity. Because when we're talking about economic activities, we're talking about the activities performed by people inside one country, one state, one province. Perform economic activity, the performance of people performance in one country. What do they perform? They perform activity of spending, of buying, producing, consuming something, and something else. Okay. Because of increase in price, because of increase in prices, the market values of production grew more than the physical volumes of production. Okay, so this one increased 3.5 times greater than the real production or physical production because of price increasing. Because of price increasing, that makes GDP increase more than activities. So in this case, GDP is a misleading measurement of economic activity during this period, 2010 to 2015. As this example shows, if we want to use GDP to compare economic activity, at different points in time, we need some measurements or some methods or some ways of excluding the effects of price change. That means we need a method or the technique that not include the price change, because we want to compare activity. We want to compare the performance, people performance or people activities. That's why price is not including. So when we're talking about people activities, when we're talking about people performance, we're talking about the way that people perform in activity, the way that people act in activity. For example, buying, selling, producing, and consuming. This is activities. That's why if we want to use GDP to compare economic activity at different points in time, we need a measure in order to compare GDP. We need some methods in order to compile GDP, by not including effects of price change. So when the price change, we not count. This effect of price change are not included in our economic activities. Okay. To do so, economists use a common set prices. A common set prices or the best set price. What does it mean, a common set prices? The prices from a common year, common period. So any period, any years, we use this period, okay? We use the price from this period. Even though we calculate the other years, the other period, we still use this period price or this year price. We call best set price. To value the quantities produced in different points in times or different periods of time. Okay, so how to do this one? How to do this one? So look at this. That's why we need to know nominal GDP. Okay, this is nominal GDP. What does it mean, nominal GDP? Nominal GDP is a measure of GDP, is a measurement of GDP, and in which the quantities of goods services produced in one period of time are valued at the current price or current year prices. It means that in order to find GDP, you need to find market value. How to find market value? In order to find market value, we need to take quantity from the market multiplied by price from the market. Okay, this is quantity, this is price. Okay, so if we add all this market value together, we got GDP. But this GDP not clearly mention nominal GDP or real GDP. That's why in order to understand whether this total market value represents nominal GDP or real GDP, represent nominal GDP or real GDP, we need to look at the price. The price that we take in order to include to our calculation. If the price comes from current price, this is nominal GDP. Okay, if the price comes from current price, this is nominal GDP. Okay, so go to the other point. Nominal GDP measures the current monetary value of production. Nominal GDP measures values the current monetary values of production. So this is the formula that we use in order to compute, in order to calculate, in order to compile nominal GDP. Okay, look at this one. Nominal GDP at year T, or at month T, or at quarter T, or at semester T. We take the quantity produced at that period, year T, quarter, or semester T, multiplied by price from that period as well. That's why you can see, in order to compute, in order to calculate nominal GDP at year T, Q from year T, P also from year T. Okay, Q from year T, P from year T. So when we take Q multiplied by P, this is we call market value. Okay, this is we call market value. When we take Q multiplied by P, this is we call market value. Market value could be come from goods and services. If we add all market values of goods services together, it should be total market value. That's why this is total market value. This is market value from one product. It could be one good or one service, but in one country, in one city, in one state, in one province, we don't produce only one good or only one service. We produce different kinds of goods and different kinds of services. That's why in order to compute nominal GDP for this country, this city, this state, we need to add all market value from different goods together. Okay, that's why we add all. So, but make note that market value at year T, market value at year T come from the quantity at year T multiplied by the price of year T. That's why this is we call nominal GDP year T. Okay, this is we call nominal GDP year T. Okay, maybe we can back to our table earlier. If T equal to 2010, we want to compute nominal GDP 2010. That's why Q we take from 2010. PT, because T is 2010, that's why PT also 2010. If we want to take the other year, T now not 2010, T now is 2015. So we want to compute nominal GDP 2015. Q we take from 2015. P also take from 2015. If we want to compute now, not 2010, not 2015, but 2018. So nominal GDP in 2018 come from Q 2018, P also 2018. Okay. So by looking these three examples that I just raised it, I erased it. You can see that. Yes, you can see that price change, always change, because this is current year price. Suppose we want to study 2010, that's why current year price is 2010. We want to study 2015, current year's price 2015. We want to study 2018, current year price also 2018. See, current year price always change. So what does it mean nominal quantity? Nominal GDP. Nominal GDP is a measure of GDP in which quantities of goods, services produced in one country are valued based on current year price or current prices. Okay, so this is example. If we want to study 2010 as a current year, we take 2010 price. If we want to study 2015 as current year, we take 2015 price. If we want to study 2018 as current year, we take 2018 price. Okay. For example, based on our table earlier, the current year of 2015 is the market price of 2015. Okay. If you want to study, or if we want to calculate nominal GDP of current year 2015, in order to calculate, that's why this is we take price from 2015. That's why we take price from 2015. So based on our table earlier, we can find that nominal GDP in 2015 is 735. Okay. How to get 735? Sorry. This one. So Q 2015 price also 2015 for pizza. Q 2015 price also 2015 for rice. We add together, this is total market value of pizza and price in 2015. So this GDP should be nominal GDP. Nominal GDP 2015. Okay. Because we can see the price, we want to study 2015, GDP 2015, we take the price from 2015, we take the price from 2015, that's why I can say this is nominal GDP. Okay, this is in our language, Khmer language. What does it mean nominal GDP? Nominal GDP វាពិបាកបកឈ្មោះនៅចំណាស់តែវាមានន័យអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុងវិស័យការងារជាក់ស្ដែងបើគេនិយាយពី nominal GDP គឺគេនិយាយអំពីផលិតផលក្នុងស្រុកសរុបដែលការកណនាតម្លៃទីផ្សារសរុបរបស់ផលិតផលសម្រាប់ចុងក្រោយយោងទៅតាមឬក៏ផ្អែកទៅលើថ្លៃផលិតផលក្នុងឆ្នាំបច្ចុប្បន្នអញ្ចឹងមានន័យថាក្នុងការកណនាយកថ្លៃឆ្នាំបច្ចុប្បន្នមកកណនាអញ្ចឹងដូចនេះដែរបាទ So this is in English, this is in English, this is in Khmer. Okay, this is in English, this is in Khmer. Now we already look at, now we are looking at or we are learning how to compute nominal GDP. How about real GDP? Real GDP is a measure of GDP in which the quantities of goods, services produced in one country are valued based on the price in a base year. The price in a base period. Okay, base period it could be year, it could be quarter, it could be semester, or it could be month. But normally we call year rather than at current price. So when we're talking about real GDP, quantity that we produce, we can take market value of the quantity that we produce by taking the price from the base year to compute. Real GDP measures the actual physical volume of production. Real GDP measures the activities, the actual activities, or the actual performance of producing goods services. So this is a formula in order to calculate a real GDP. In order to calculate a real GDP year T, we take the quantity from year T, but price, I take year 0. What does it mean year 0? Year 0 is base year. Base year never change. Base year still base year for any years. That's why never change. I put 0. 0 is a number that you know exactly. 0 cannot be 1. 0 cannot be minus 1. 0 cannot be 2, 3, 4, 5. No. 0 is 0. But how about T? We don't know because T is parameter. T could be changed year 2000. The year 2011, year 2002, year 2015, or year 2020. That's why T is changed, but 0 never change. So, in order to find a real GDP, you need at year T, you need quantity from year T multiplied by P base year. So when we take Q multiplied by P, this is market value. This is market value. But we're not producing only one product. We're using many products, many goods, many services together. That's why we add all this market value together. This is we call GDP. Okay, we call GDP. Because the way that we use in order to find market value based on price from base year, so this market value we call real GDP. Okay, this market value we call real GDP. So when we take quantity multiplied by price, this is market value. Market value. Okay, so total market value is GDP. But this is GDP. We're not sure that this GDP is nominal GDP or real GDP. So total market value is GDP. But we are not sure that this total market value as GDP is real GDP or nominal GDP. In order to understand whether this GDP is real GDP or nominal GDP, you need to look at the way that we calculate this total market value. The way that we look at, we try to understand the price. In order to find total market value, we take price from base year or price from current year. If we take price from base year, this total market value is real GDP. But if we take price from current year, this total market value is nominal GDP. Okay, it's nominal GDP. Okay, so what does it mean GDP? GDP is total market value of final goods, final services produced in one country, one state, one province, one region in a period of time. In order to find market value, you need to know quantity market and you need to know price market. Okay, this is GDP. But in order to identify this GDP is real GDP or nominal GDP, we need to look again how we compute total market value, by what price that we take to compute. If we take the price from the base year, this total market value is a real GDP. But if we take the price from current year, this total market value is nominal GDP. Okay. So to do this, we must eliminate the effect of changing prices. So we do that in order to remove the effects of change in price, because price never change. Okay, because price never change. How can we do this one? Okay, maybe I go back to give you. Okay, let's look at again. Now suppose that I want to find real GDP 2010. T 2010, Q T, that's why Q from 2010. But I will put question mark. How about 0? What year that is year 0, year base? So that means base year. What is base year? If you take 2010 as a base year, that's why P here is 2010. Okay, 2010. If T change to 2015, so real GDP 2015 come from the quantity 2015. 2015 multiplied by price from base year. What is base year? 2010. That's why 2010. If you want to find real GDP 2018, because T 2018, that's why this is QT, Q from 2018. But this is not Q, not PT, this is P0. What is P0? P0 is P base year. What is base year? If we take base year 2000, if we take 2010 as base year, that's why we multiply by the price from 2010. Okay, so look at this one. If we want to find real GDP 2010, we take price from 2010 because 2010 as a base year. If we want to compute real GDP 2015, we take price from 2010 because 2010 as a base year. If we want to find a real GDP 2018, we take the price from 2010 because 2010 as base year. So you can see this 3-year real GDP price change in price is 0. That means no change. Okay, so price no change because this is 2010, this is also 2010, this is 2010. If you want to find your real GDP 2010, you take price from 2010 because 2010 as a base year. If you want to take your real GDP 2015, you take price from 2010. If you want to calculate real GDP 2018, you got price from 2010. That's why the change in price is equal to 0. That's why no change in price. So in this case, if real GDP change, because of change in only Q. That's why. What is Q? Q is an output from activities of using, from performance of using. So real GDP is a measure of GDP that we use in order to look at the actual physical production, physical volume of production, physical quantities of production, physical activities of production, physical performance of production. Okay, because there's no price change effect. So this is in our language. This is definition in English. This is a definition in our language. Real GDP ជាភាសាខ្មែរគឺផលិតផលក្នុងស្រុកសរុបដែលការកណនាតម្លៃទីផ្សារសរុបរបស់ផលិតផលសម្រាប់ចុងក្រោយយោងទៅលើឬផ្អែកទៅលើថ្លៃផលិតផលក្នុងឆ្នាំគោលអញ្ចឹងឆ្នាំគោលគឺជាឆ្នាំណាមួយដែលយើងកំណត់បើយើងជាអ្នកធ្វើយើងត្រូវកំណត់តែបើជាលំហាត់ប្រហែលគេឲ្យ Okay, so based on the base year, this is in English, this is in Khmer. So base year normally it is given to you, or sometimes it's asking you to set which year is best year. It depends on what prefer. But normally best year is given, not set by you. Okay, if we take price from 2010 as a base year price, so we can compute the real GDP 2015. So real GDP 2015 come from the quantity of 2015 multiplied by price from 2010. Why we need to take quantity from 2015 but multiplied by price from 2010? Because we know that 2010 as the best year. That's why in order to find real GDP, we take the price from the best year that we call best year price. Okay? So I think that you have no problem with this one. You need to remember that one. In order to find real GDP in what year, you need to take quantity from that year multiplied by the price from best year. This is real GDP. This is a real GDP. That's why based on the table earlier we can see that real GDP 2015, this is quantity 2015, but this is price from 2010. This is quantity from 2015, this is price from 2010. Okay, we can see that real GDP 2015 equal to 630, while nominal GDP, who still remember nominal GDP 2015? 735. You see, the same year 2015, but the real GDP tend to be lower than nominal GDP. Why real GDP lower than nominal GDP? Okay. Why is real GDP lower than nominal GDP? Maybe I ask you to answer. Okay, my question again. Based on this, we can see that the same year of 2015, why is nominal GDP higher than the real GDP? Because nominal GDP is 735, while real GDP is only 630. Why? Okay, I'm waiting to hear to see your answer. Due to the triple in production of physical production, real GDP is also triple, 3 times. Due to the 3 times increasing in physical production, the real GDP also increasing by 3 times. How we get 3 times? By taking 630 from 2015 divided by 210 from 2010. That's why this is 3 times. Okay, 3 times. What are the nominal GDP? What are the nominal GDP 2010 and the real GDP 2010? Based on the previous calculation, we can see that nominal GDP 2010 is 210. Okay, how to get this one? Maybe I go back. This one. quantity 2010, price 2010, quantity 2010, price 2010. That's why nominal GDP 2010 is 210. How about real GDP 2010? Real GDP 2010 also 210. Why? Why? Because this is quantity 2010. This is price base year. This is quantity 2010. This is price base year. But 2010 as a base year, that's why price base year and price 2010 are the same. So remember, in base year, the nominal GDP and the real GDP have the same value. Nominal GDP and real GDP have the same market value in in base year, in base period. Okay? So remember that one. This is the other in order to find growth rate. Growth rate. Real GDP growth rate. Annual. What does it mean annual? Annual that means per year or yearly. Annual that means per year or yearly. So what is the annual real GDP growth rate from 2010 to 2015? Growth rate. Okay. This is growth rate. So how to find growth rate? Ending minus beginning divided by beginning multiplied by 100%. Or I can split into two. Ending over beginning minus beginning over beginning multiplied by 100%. Beginning over beginning, this is 1. It should be ending over beginning minus 1 multiplied by 100%. Okay, so this one tends to be long, this one tends to be shorter. That's why normally we use this one because it's shorter. We don't use this one because it's a bit longer. So this is average annual GDP or real GDP growth rate in n years period. That means one period with n year. Okay, n year. How many year? I don't know. N year. How to find n year? In order to find n year, you need to find ending year minus beginning year. Okay, that's why n year, you need to take ending year minus beginning year. So this is, remember that I just explained you earlier how to find growth rate. Ending divided by beginning minus 1. Those one we take only the first root, but if you have many years like this one, we need to take end root of division here. How about minus 1? Minus 1 not taking into. Okay, minus 1 not taking into the root. That's why minus 1 is outside the root. The root is ending only, ending divided by beginning. Okay, how to find n? You know ending, you know beginning. That's why take ending minus beginning, you can find n. Okay, look at our example. Average annual GDP growth rate in 5 years from 2010 to 2015. So take 2015 minus 2010. This 5 year. 5 year is n. Okay, 5 year is n. That's why this is n, 5 year. So we take GDP ending, GDP 2015 divided by GDP in 2010 and take the fifth root and then minus 1 multiplied by 100%. We got 24.6. What does it mean 24.6? 24.6 is average annual GDP growth rate. Average annual GDP growth rate for 5 years period from 2010 to 2015. Exactly what does it mean? It means that from 2010 to 2011 the growth rate is 24.6%. 57 I round to 60. 60 equals 0.6. From 2011 to 2012 the growth rate 24.6. From 2012 to 2013 the growth rate 24.6. 2013 to 2014 the growth rate 24.6. 2014 to 15 the growth rate 24.6. That's why this is average annual. Average annual, that means average per year. Per average growth rate. Okay. In average, the annual GDP growth, the annual real GDP growth rate from 2010 to 2015 is about 24.57% per year. Okay, make note this one. This is a little bit wrong. This explanation is a little bit wrong. Why is it a little bit wrong? Because I used the same item, the same word, the same meaning, the same word meaning 2 times. What are they? Annual and per year. They are the same meaning. Again, in order to make it 100% correct, if you use annual, don't use per year, because they are the same. Why you need to use them 2 times while they have the same meaning? That's why in average the annual real GDP growth rate from 2010 to 2015 is about 24.6%, not per year. But if you don't want to use annual, okay, correct per year. So you can, this is I mentioned, if you use annual, don't use per year. But if you use per year, don't use annual. Okay. If you want to use annual, don't use per year. But if you want to use per year, don't use annual. Why? Because they are the same meaning. So use only one. Okay, this is the table from we already had from previous the earlier this movie. Suppose that I add one more year, 2016, with quantities of pizza, the price of pizza, quantities of rice, the price of rice. Question: what are the nominal GDP 2016? Nominal GDP 2016 and the real GDP 2016 by taking 2010 as a base year. Okay, so information telling us about base year we use in order to find your real GDP, not nominal GDP. Second question: what is the annual real GDP growth rate from 2015 to 2016? Okay, second question. So we need to find, for second question, you need to find n. So yes, based on I mentioned earlier, n is number of period in number of years in the period or number of months in the period, number of quarters in the period, number of semesters in the period. But it should be year because annual. That's why in order to find number of years in the period, we need to find ending years 2016. Our example, our question here, minus 2015. So is it 1? Okay, so it's 1 year period. So how to find growth rate for 1 year period? So this is formula. Yes, 1 year period, normally it should be, we take the first root. But the first root is nothing. Why? Maybe you, I think some of you or most of you still remember this one. For example, I have a square root. So it should be exponent 1, and this is a square root. Square root should be a second root. So it should be x exponent 1 over 2, right? Okay. So it's 1 over 2. 1 over 2. How about this one? If x, the first root, x exponent 1 are the first root. The first root, or it should be the first root of x exponent 1. It should be x exponent 1 over 1 equal to x exponent 1 and equal to x. That's why you can see the first root is nothing, because it's equal to x here, or equal to x exponent 1 here. That's why x exponent 1 is here. Okay, that's why first root is nothing. So in this case, I will not using the first root for that one, because in only 1 year period. Okay. So again, in order to find growth rate for 1 year period, of 1 month period, or 1 semester period, or 1 quarter period, you need to take something that you study, ending divided beginning, minus 1 multiplied by 100%. Why is it 100%? Because this is growth rate. Okay, growth rate must be percentage. Okay, so I hope that you can find answers a question here, question here. So we have 2 questions based on this data in order to enable you to practice to find the answers of these 2 questions. Okay, this is the other practice that you need to do based on your textbook. Go back to your textbook on page 456. You can see example 17.8 and concept check 17.5. And page 457, you can see recap. Okay, so this is what you need to do in order to get more understanding. Okay, so based on this one, nominal GDP we just studied, and real GDP we just already finished studying. Now we go to GDP deflator. GDP deflator. An accurate view and accurate pictures of one country economy requires adjusting nominal GDP to real GDP by using GDP deflator. By using GDP deflator in order to adjust nominal GDP to real GDP. GDP deflator tells us that the rise in nominal GDP is likely caused by a rise in prices rather than a rise in quantities of goods, services, or output we produced. So GDP deflator tells us that the increasing in nominal GDP is likely because of increasing the price rather than increasing our quantities of output that this country or that this state produced. Okay, because based on the formula, nominal GDP year T comes from total market value total market value at year T. That's why Q also T, P is also T. That's why Q change when nominal GDP change, Q change, P also change. So change by increasing, so nominal GDP tend to focus increase in price, not only focus increase in quantity. Okay, that's why this is nominal GDP. The GDP deflator is a measure of overall level of prices. The GDP deflator is a measure or is index or is indicator that tell us the overall levels of prices. That's why a change of GDP deflator, it means the change of overall levels of price. So GDP deflator can be calculated by this formula. GDP deflator at year T equal to nominal GDP year T divided by real GDP year T multiplied by 100, but not percentage. Why not percentage? Because this is because index. Okay, index. Index is a number that we use in order to compare. There's no units. There are no units for or index. GDP deflator in English, but in Khmer សន្ទុះបរិផរណាផលិតផលក្នុងស្រុកសរុបផលិតផលក្នុងស្រុកសរុបសន្ទុះបរិផរណាអញ្ចឹងជាទូទៅគេហៅកាត់គេហៅថាសន្ទុះបរិផរណាទេអត់និយាយវែងដូចនៅក្នុងនេះទេអញ្ចឹងដល់គេនិយាយថាសន្ទុះបរិផរណាមានន័យថាគេនិយាយអំពីសន្ទុះបរិផរណាផលិតផលក្នុងស្រុកសរុបហើយ Okay, so in order to calculate GDP deflator year T, you need to know nominal GDP year T, you need to know real GDP year T by taking nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. Nominal GDP is converted into real GDP as follows. In this case, for example, you want to find a real GDP and you don't know best year or best period. So we don't know best year or best period. If we don't know best year or best period, we don't know price best. Okay? If we don't know the price best, we cannot take quantity multiplied by price to get a real GDP because we don't know the price. That's why we cannot use this formula. Okay, in order to get the real GDP, we cannot use this formula because we don't know the best year or the best period. If we don't know the best year or best period, we cannot find the price from the best year or best period. That's why if we don't know the price, we just know Q, and we don't know the price, we cannot find total market value. So in this case, real GDP cannot be found by using this formula. If we cannot use this formula to find real GDP, we have the other chance to get real GDP from the other formula. This is formula. Okay. Real GDP year T come from nominal GDP year T divided by GDP deflator year T multiplied by 100. So if you know nominal GDP, if you know GDP deflator, you can find your real GDP. However, if you know real GDP, you know GDP deflator, and you want to find a real nominal GDP, you can take real GDP multiplied by GDP deflator divided by 100. So if you know real GDP, and you know GDP deflator, and you want to find a nominal GDP, you can take the real GDP multiplied by GDP deflator divided by 100. One way to measure the country economy inflation rate is to compute the percentage change. Okay, percentage change. To compute the percentage change or percentage increase. Percentage change or percentage increase in the GDP deflator from one year to the other year, from 1 month to the other month, from one quarter to the other quarter, from one semester to the other semester. So how to find percentage change? Percentage change means growth rate. So how to find growth rate? Yes, this is to find growth rate. So the growth rate of GDP deflator from year T to year T minus 1. This is the growth rate of GDP deflator from year T minus 1 to year T is inflation rate at year T. The growth rate of GDP deflator from year T minus 1 to year T is inflation rate year T. So how to find inflation rate year T, or how to find growth rate of GDP deflator from year T minus 1 to year T? By taking GDP deflator year T divided by GDP deflator year T minus 1, because this is from T to T minus 1 is one period. How to get this one? Okay, you can see T ending minus beginning, because in order to find n, remember this is n, in order to find n here we take ending minus beginning. So in this case T minus T plus 1. So this is plus T, this is minus T, this is cancel. That's why we got only 1. Okay, got only 1. But the first root is nothing. That's why I can delete it. Okay, I can delete it. So this is inflation rate. Inflation rate is the growth rate of GDP deflator from one period to the other period. Okay, this for example, I have nominal GDP, I have data. Real GDP, I also have data from 2004, 2008, 2010. Based on this data, I want to find GDP deflator. So you know how to find GDP deflator? You need to take nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. So nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. This is GDP deflator. Okay, so based on this one we can see 2004 GDP deflator is 100, 2008 GDP deflator is 120, 2010 GDP deflator is 136.5, 136.5. So how to find average annual growth rate or annual average growth rate of GDP deflator? The growth rate of GDP deflator is inflation rate. So 4.7, 6.7. Maybe I'm not saying it again. What does it mean 4.7 from 2004 to 2008? 6.7 from 2008 to 2010. What does it mean? Because this is annual. Yes, I say only the annual here. Annual mean per year. Okay? Annual mean per year. So this is per year, but I want to find the period. From 2004 to 2008, only one period. That's why 20% increasing. This is a 13.8 or 0.75 increasing. Okay, so this is GDP deflator during a period from 2004 to 2008, only one period. From 2008 to 2010 is only one period. But this is not one period, this is per year. In this period, how many years? That's why this is per year, per year, per year. Okay, now it's time, because this is for next movie. It's time for you to watch and learn. Not only watch, not only learn, but also practice. Okay, so when you watch the YouTube or movie on YouTube, what do you do for YouTube? Okay, it's time for you to work.